All right, hello guys. So today we're going to be talking more about the blues and specifically about the harmony of the blues. My favorite way to talk about harmony is through hook theory. If you remember last time we were talking about rhythm and we were talking about swinging eighth notes versus straight eighth notes. Blues uses swinging eighth notes. So straight eighth notes sound like a metronome, one and two, and where everything is exactly even. Swinging eighth notes swings a little bit. One and two and three and four and one and two. And so when we start applying that rhythm to even things like the major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do, it starts sounding a little bit more like the blues. Today we're going to talk about the harmony that builds up the blues, and then the last thing we're going to talk about is the scales that build up the blues. But today we're going to focus on the harmony. I have in this tab open hook theory because I think hook theory is my favorite way to talk about harmony. Just real quickly, when you open up hook theory, you have to make sure that you are signed in correctly over here. And then if you take a look at the products, I ordered all of you guys the hook theory books 1 and book 2. So have a look at those, especially book 1 is really useful. But today we're going to look at the hook theory sketchpad. All right, when I open up the sketchpad, it's going to bring me to this. Since you guys have been working with the key of D major or B minor, let's go ahead and switch it to D major by clicking up here. And then if we take a look at the chords that are in D major, these are a chord that's built off of every single note here. So we got do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and then do again is up top. If I'm clicking down here in this gray box, this will be the harmony that we're trying to talk about. So let's just talk about this harmony here. We have uppercase chords and we have lowercase chords. The uppercase chords, when we listen to them, they sound major, they sound happy. And when we have lowercase chords, they sound sad, they sound minor. And the reason that these sound happy when we look at it is if you take a look at when I scroll over a chord, it highlights specific notes. In this case, it's got red, yellow, and blue. Red is do, mi, sol, red, yellow, blue. And if we took a look at this one that I highlight, I've got orange, green, and I have purple up top, and that's re, fa, sol, sorry, re, fa, la, and those are going to be, when you add those up together, they sound sad. But in the blues, it's kind of surprising, but we don't use either major or minor. We use a special kind, and we call it dominant chord. So a dominant chord, if we take a look over here, I'm going to start with a major chord. Let's start with the 5 chord. Right? And if I click on it to highlight it, a dominant chord actually uses 4 notes, not just these 3 that are here. So to make it a dominant chord, I'm going to first create, instead of just a triad, I'm going to add a 7th here. And if I take a look here, it says A7. It doesn't say A major 7. It doesn't say A minor 7. It just says A7. That A7 is the symbol for a dominant chord. And when I listen to a dominant chord, to me, it actually sounds bluesy. This sounds happy. To me, this sounds sad. And this one sounds bluesy. Okay, so we want to change the other chords that we're going to be using to also sound bluesy. We're going to use the 1 chord to change this to make it sound bluesy. I want to make it a 7th chord, but take a look what happens. Now it says D major 7, and I want to change that so it's not a major 7th, but it's just a A7. In this case, it's going to be just a D7. The way that we're going to do this is a little bit of a trick. We're going to go to the secondary chords. If I click on this, and then right now it says A7, but if I come up here, I can find the one that says D7. Okay, and it's red, that's going to be my 1 chord. The next chord we're going to use in blues, we're only using the major chords that come naturally, so we're going to use 1. The next uppercase letter is 4. The next uppercase letter is 5. We've already got 5 there, and we're going to use these as building blocks. So I want to get 4 in there. Now, the same thing's going to happen. When I turn it to a 7th chord, it's going to turn it into a G major 7. We don't want a major 7. We want a dominant 7. So we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to click this secondary chord. and it's the secondary 5, and I want a G. Now wait a second, this says G sharp 7. We don't want a G sharp 7, so we have to do another one here. We're going to go to a borrow from, and let's see, we're going to borrow from Mixolydian. Right? If we take a look here, it's Mixolydian. I know it's a little bit strange, it's a little bit confusing, but once we have it, we can just copy and paste. We don't have to play with it anymore. So now I've got a G7 chord. I know it's this big crazy thing going on here, but we don't have to worry about it too much. Okay, whoa, sorry. Let me undo that. If I do Control Z, it'll go back. So if I now unclick any of those and I go back to no secondary and I don't have to worry about 7 chords, none of them are highlighted, none of them will change. So I have, if I go back to the beginning here, I've got just the triads. I have the 1 chord as a D7, I've got the 4 chord as a G7, and I've got the 5 chord as an A7. So I'm going to now move these around a little bit. The blues pattern is 12 measures long, and each one of these boxes is a measure. So in each one of these places, we're going to have to put 1 chord. So I'm going to show you which chord we're going to be using in each one. All right, so let's see. So first, I'm going to move this 4 chord. We're going to move it over to bar 5 for now. And I'm going to move this 5 chord. I'm going to do Command X, and I'm going to move it over to bar 9 for now. All right, for the 1 chord, we're going to make this, I'm going to just drag and drop the edge. I'm going to make it 4 bars long for now. Actually, you know what? Instead of dragging and dropping, I'm just going to copy and paste it because I like having it start over at the beginning of each bar. And then if I want to change it later, it's a little bit easier. Okay, this next one, I want it to be 2 bars long. And then I'm going to go back to the 1 chord, so I'm going to copy the 1 chord. And I'm going to paste it. The 5 chord is only 1 measure long, and then I'm going to add the 4 chord, and then I'm going to add the 1 chord, the red chord. Now, we said that this is 12 bars long. Right now, I've got 8 bars long on the top. I've got 9, 10, 11. This last chord, it changes depending on whether I want to continue the pattern or if I want to finish the pattern. If I want to continue the pattern, I'm going to use this 5 chord again. And since for now, let's just go ahead and continue the pattern, I'm going to continue it here. Now, the last thing I want to do to make this sound even more bluesy is I'm going to slow the tempo down a bit. Let's see, I'll slow it down to maybe 85. And I'm going to change the band. I'm going to use maybe, I don't think there's one specifically for blues. So let's try one of these jazz ones. I think this will sound pretty bluesy. Okay. All right, and if I close the bands tab, and if I listen from the beginning, let's see what that sounds like. I know it's a little bit glitchy playing back, but when you listen to it on yours, it won't be glitchy. And then we have the 4 chord. And back to the 1 chord. Now it goes to the 5 chord. And then at that point, it would actually repeat. It would go back and repeat. And you can actually remove some of these bars too. We don't have to do that right now, or we could take it out. So one more time, just to make sure that we all understand. Normally, we were just using major chords and we're using minor chords. But for the blues, we're going to use a different kind of chord besides major and minor, and it's called a dominant chord. The dominant chord, the way we write it is we just write a D and a 7, or a G and a 7, or an A and a 7. So there's no major or minor added to that at all because it is a different type of chord altogether. Okay. Okay, just so that you know what this looks like in actual notation, I'm showing you my iPad here, and I'm going to draw what it would actually look like. So first I'm going to, because we said it was 12 bars, I'm going to split these measures up into 12 bars. So right now I've got 8. Let's split this this last one up. And now I've got 12 bars. And I'm going to put a double bar here at the end. Okay, so let's see. So I'm starting with the 1 chord, and we said that the 1 chord I'm going to write with an uppercase I. That's a Roman numeral for 1. And it's uppercase because it sounds major, but we don't want it to sound major. We want it to sound dominant. So I'm going to write 1, 7. Right? And that's going to be 4 bars long. If I don't write anything at all in the space, like for example right here, if I don't write anything, then I assume that it's the exact same chord. So I don't have to change at all. Where it does change, and the reason that I wrote it in groups of 4s is that it's a little bit easier for me to see. Let me rewrite this so it's a little bit clearer. So it's a little bit easier to see. Oops. It's a little bit easier to see when I write it in groups of 4 because the first chord changes at a group of 4. So it's going to go to a 4, 7 chord. And then when it finally changes is after 2 measures, 7 chord. And then I'm going to go to the last group of 4 because that's where the next big change happens. And I start with a 5 chord, and it's a 5, 7 chord. And then I'm going to go to a 4 chord, 4, 7 chord. Remember the 7th chord sound really bluesy. And then we've got a 1 chord, 7. Now, the last one, it really depends. If we are repeating, then I'm going to use a 5, 7 chord. If we are not repeating, if we're finishing the song, it's going to end on a 1, 7 chord, just like that. And that's the pattern that we have. So we've got 1 chord, 2, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. And if we listen to it on the hook theory that you just created, then you'll be able to hear it. And then it goes to the 4 chord, 2, 3, 4, 4 chord, 2, 3 chord, 1 chord, 2, 3 chord, 1 chord, 2, 3 chord, 5 chord, 2, 3 chord, 4 chord, 2, 3 chord, 1 chord, 2, 3 chord, 5 chord if we're repeating. So that's really all we have to remember. This is called a 12-bar blues, and it'll be something that'll be really useful for us as we go forward. So today I want you to create a 12-bar blues in GarageBand, in Hook Theory, the exact same way that I just showed you. And if I listen from the beginning, let's see what that sounds like. I know it's a little bit glitchy playing back, but when you listen to it on yours, it won't be glitchy. And then we have the 4 chord. And back to the 1 chord. Now it goes to the 5 chord. All right, thank you. I hope you have a good day.